Do you ever feel stuck and you just don't understand where someone else is coming from? Can they really not get the picture? Find out how Perceptual Positions can really help you. Hey, I'm Mike Sweet from mikesweet.co.uk, giving you the edge in life and business with NLP and psychology. Now, in this show, we're going to talk all about perceptual positions, an NLP framework to help you understand more about you and another person's perception. Now, thankfully, this is one of the few things in NLP that the name almost gives away what it is, a perceptual position. Now, this is about understanding someone else's perception, someone else's position on something. Where are they coming from? Because most of us have a different perception on situations, and that's fine until it's not. So perceptual positions can be used in time of trying to understand another person's point of view, trying to resolve a current conflict, trying to get over a past conflict that still causes you pain and hurt or discomfort. Now, we don't just leave those things festering away. Now, perceptual positions gives you a way to review an old event or review a future event that you might be worried about to really gain some big perspective. You might hear people talking about not perceptual positions, but we say things like, if you knew where I was coming from, or if you could walk a mile in my shoes, or we also say, I'd like to be a fly on the wall there. We do perceptual positions all the time without thinking about it, but perhaps with not quite as much structure or much rigor, which is why we're not able to control the output that we get. So let's have a little look at what perceptual positions are. So firstly, as with NLP, you're going to find lots of different variations to this, but let me stick with the basic form. There are 3 basic positions. Position 1 is the first position. That's your perspective on that situation. So let's grab a situation. Perhaps you've got an upset with a family member. You haven't spoken to them for the past year because you and your brother fell out. So position number 1 is you. You are position number 1. So you review that situation as if you were back there now, of how you fell out with your brother, what the conversation was, what you were thinking, how that made you feel, what was the point that you were trying to get across. What was your perspective on that situation? And then the second position is taking your brother's perspective. So stepping out of your perspective, taking your brother's perspective. Now, of course, this is an element of guesswork and perception, but go with it. It's amazing what you can begin to really understand. So when you step into your brother's shoes from his perspective and have him review what's happening. How did you get to that? Have him wonder what you might be thinking. If someone's stuck in their perspective, it's because they're sure on their perspective. So what is it that you're absolutely sure on? Now, of course, this is all coming from you, but it just gives you a different insight to what's happening. And then position number 3, should I say, this isn't 3, this is 3. Position number 3 is that observer position, that fly on the wall, that some people might use, we might be able to, on this 2 brothers fell out, we might be able to drag mum in or dad in or big sister or whoever to grab that third perspective. And when you step into that third person's perspective, what do they think about the situation? What's happening for them? What are the 2 missing that the observer can see? You see, when you're able to step into and move around in these positions, you are able to gain a more rounded perspective. Now, you become the ultimate mediator, the ultimate placator, the ultimate person who's able to balance their thoughts, feelings, emotions. So let's have a look at some of the key points for perceptual positions and what needs to happen. Now, as this is something, if you're working for on yourself or with anyone else, you need to know where you're starting from. So if we use that example about 2 brothers falling out, how does that make you feel? On a scale of 1 to 10, how bad is that for you now before we start? And it's called a subjective units of distress, a SUD scale. Where are you on a scale of 1 to 10? It's your subjective view. Perhaps it causes you an 8 in terms of pain. So at least you know we've got a starting point. Okay, then you go through the process of first position and see that from your point of view and what you were thinking, what your thoughts were, what your understandings were, what your perception was at that time. Now, what's really important before you go to position 2, which was your brother, which was the other person within that, you need to break state. You need to step away from those thoughts, the frustrations, the angers, whatever it was that was attached to that for you. You need to step away from that, break away from that. So use a break state. That might be something like 8 8s plus 4, take away 2, add 1. What is it? I don't know. I wasn't even thinking. But a break state is a great way for you to shake something off, get rid of what you've just gone through, and then it enables you to step into the next position, to position 2, far more effectively. And again, breaking state needs to happen when you go from position 2 to position 3, and then when you go back to position 1. So break state, make sure you include that in there. Very important. Now, if you're a practitioner working with someone on this process and you're helping, guiding someone else through it, remember, this is not your perspective. This is not an opportunity for you to advise and go, I can see where you went wrong. This is to allow a person to begin to perceive for themselves that situation differently by taking those different seats. So remember, you are just there as a facilitator, not a guide, not an advisor, not a I can see what you've missed, I can see how you've got to this. You are just there plainly as the facilitator. Now you start at position 1, and thankfully that makes sense, starting at position 1. But you also finish on position 1. So when you start on position 1 and get your first person perspective, and then you go around and get the other party's perspective, then the observer's perspective, and then you'll come back to perspective number 1. It always starts and always finishes with 1. And perhaps you might want to do 2 or 3 rounds of this, but it always starts and always finishes with 1. And if you remember how we started this process, it was by using the SUD scale, subjective units of distress. So on a scale of 1 to 10, having gotten a different insight, a different perspective and what could have meant when your brother said X. And when you look at it now from a fly on the wall, what do you now think about it? And obviously the aim is that SUD scale's gone down. Well, I suppose now I can see it from a different angle. I never really thought of that before. Yes, it's more like a 4. It's livable. So have a think. And that's a great way that you can really begin to gauge the work that you're doing or even understanding yourself. Mark it beforehand of how that makes you feel and mark it the second time of how that makes you feel. And remember, part of the way these NLP tools and techniques work is only a memory of the last time you remembered it, which is what's so great. You can always go back and revisit it. Remember, regardless how many YouTube videos you watch, how many books you read, and how many podcasts you listen to, you can never really learn NLP until you implement and practice it. This is why if you pop over to my website, you'll find a practice session over via email where you can sign up, and every single week you'll receive a workbook or a practical way that you can implement some part of NLP in your life. Because you can't learn by watching, you can only learn by doing. Head on over there now. So if you like what I've gone through in this brief video, please do give us a thumbs up. Please do pop us a comment, and of course do subscribe. You can also find me on iTunes, on Facebook, on Instagram, and on Twitter. So let's connect. See you soon. Bye for now.